The Clemson Tigers are 7-0 and a 13.5 point favorite to beat the Syracuse Orange this weekend. Houston Burnett, Morgan Thomas, we're here. We're going to discuss it. Before we do, make sure you hit the like button on this video and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Hopefully you have. But we're back again. We promised you that we would have more videos, and we're trying to make good on that promise. So here we are, and we're discussing Clemson versus Syracuse, the game this weekend. So I'm looking forward to it. 12 p.m. game, Houston. After all these night games, are you kind of glad for a 12 p.m. game?
Sort of, kind of. I mean, I would prefer 3:30. 3:30 is the golden hour when it comes to college football, and I'm always going to be a proponent for any time a game's in Death Valley at 3:30. Oh man, I'd put it up there with any primetime game too. Noon's fine though. First game I've been back to in person in a little while. I'm going to get to go on Saturday, so it'll be good to go, hang out with some people, and then get back by a decent hour and be able to watch football. So not the greatest, but also it's college football, so I'm going to watch.
I personally like to see the Clemson Tigers play early because I want to get it out the way. I don't like waiting for my team. I can wait for all these other teams and enjoy the rest of the day. I want to get it in, go win the game, and move on to what's next for the weekend. Kind of like my style when I'm shopping. Just go in, get what I want, and get out of there. Mm-hmm. Typically something orange, maybe something purple, but most of the time in and out. And I don't want to talk to anybody. I want to get to the checkout, self-checkout, and get out of there. So that's kind of my style. I don't mind the 12 p.m. game. Again, on ABC this weekend. Syracuse is 6-0. Clemson 7-0. Crazy matchup here between two top 25 teams. Clemson, number 5 overall. Syracuse, 14th overall. So it should be, ranked-wise, a really big game. But when you look at the spread, it says that Clemson is still almost right at a two touchdown favorite there against the Orange. Now, Syracuse is doing a lot better. Preseason, Houston, I think you agree, we both didn't really think Syracuse would be here. So it's a surprise for Syracuse to be here. Now, Clemson has some surprises of its own, but just to be here and be undefeated is a surprise. Do you think that's why the reflection in the spread is the way it is that it's really kind of like you really don't know why Syracuse is 6-0?
Well, there are things that Syracuse does well. I think when you look at the matchup, Syracuse defense has performed well above expectations, and they have some good wins for that defense. You look at week 1, they were able to just completely suffocate Louisville. You saw how they handled NC State sans Devin Leary. Even though it's without Devin Leary, they still have a lot of talent on their offense, and Syracuse was able to handily win that game. Offensively, you have a lot of playmakers that nobody really saw coming this year. I think everybody knew Sean Tucker was going to be their primary weapon, but a lot of people didn't see Garrett Schrader kind of stepping into the fold like he has, or Gadsden, the tight end, stepping up like he has as well. So there are good things that Syracuse does, but at the same time, you kind of look, you see that they've beaten UConn, and they've beaten Wagner, and they beat a NC State team without Devin Leary, a struggling Louisville team, and then their 2 biggest wins were games where they were struggling with Virginia at home, and they honestly should have lost a game to Purdue. They were able to pull that one out at the end in that game. So they're not without their warts. I still think this is something that Clemson is going to have to come in and be focused in this game. But hey, they've been locked in since Wake Forest, and so that works out in their favor. So it is something that we're going to find out how much Syracuse is really, if they're really a legit 6-0 team. But they're also going to find out what a really harsh environment is going to look like on Saturday as well.
When you read the other articles from the Syracuse point of view, they all admit that this game is huge for Syracuse, not one that they're going to be used to or have already had this season. By far the hardest offense, by far the hardest defense. They did play Purdue, but Purdue is predominantly passing, and they really didn't get a lot of rushing yards in that game. But Purdue, I think, almost had like 500 yards passing. So you can pass all over Syracuse. I think Clemson is a more balanced, and you're going to have to worry more about both sides of the ball when it comes to passing and rushing the ball. So that presents a harder team to defend against. So I think Clemson is a harder offense than they've been used to all year. And on defense, I mean, like you mentioned, Louisville, UConn, Purdue, Virginia, Wagner, NC State. Outside of NC State, we know Clemson is the best, I think, the best defense in the ACC. So NC State is obviously up there as well. NC State kept them to 24 points, but again, as you mentioned, really couldn't get much offense going, only scoring 9 points. So I think that this is the biggest, most well-rounded team that Syracuse will play this season. The question for me from Clemson is, we've seen this talk about the middle eight. My concern is there's 52 other minutes in the game. I want to see Clemson, and I don't think I have seen Clemson actually play a complete game from opening kickoff to end of the game.
Well, here's my thing about this is that we talk about middle eight, fast starts, full 4 quarters. I'll always come back to, I've written a lot about this on Rubbing the Rock, is, this team is still evolving in a good way. It's not a negative to say that this team has evolved. If we're going to put in Pokemon phrases here, because, that's what I played on my Game Boy back in my day. We were Squirtle for the first 3 or 4 games. Now we're Wartortle, and we're going towards Blastoids. Or if you're a fire Pokemon, we're Charmeleon right now. We're Charmeleon. We're going to Charizard. So that's where we're at right now. We have some power. We've realized that, we can move the ball. We've got a lot of talent on offense. Our defense is good. It's improved since Wake Forest. But if you control the middle eight and you're able to score on offense in the first half prior to that point, if you're able to get a lead, and maybe if you're able to punch it in the fourth quarter to really set you over the edge. If it's 23-3 or 23-10, make it 30-10. Or if it's 24-10, whatever. Just punch it in to put pressure on them. I don't think Syracuse has truly had the pressure of falling behind and having to play catch up. And I think that's crucial here. You don't necessarily have to play your full 4 quarters. I just think getting out to a good start, doing your middle eight magic, and then essentially putting them away. If that takes, a little longer into the fourth quarter, if that happens in 3 quarters and you're playing reserves for the rest of the game, great. But I think that you're going to see opportunities for Clemson later in the year to build off these first 8 games, because let's not make any bones about it. After the Notre Dame game, Clemson has 3 home games that they have a chance to do a lot of things, as long as they don't lose sight of their opportunities. So this is get out to a lead, hold that lead, make crucial plays at crucial times, and have that moment at the end of the game where the game's over. You put it out of reach.
When you look at the team stats overall, they're pretty similar. Points per game, 36 for Syracuse, 38.6 for Clemson. Points allowed per game, 13.2 for Syracuse, 19.7 for Clemson. The biggest difference when I look at that, the total yards look about the same. The yards allowed look about the same. But it kind of goes back to when we compared Florida State and Clemson. It seemed like they were very even at a glance from the team stats. But when you look at their opponents, there's a big difference there. Clemson now has played NC State, Wake Forest, Florida State, Boston College. They went through almost everybody in the Atlantic Division, and now continuing here with Syracuse. Syracuse, as you mentioned, Wagner, UConn, Virginia. It's not as nice of a lineup or opponent records there that you have seen, or even contests, how difficult it is versus Clemson versus Syracuse. So for me, when you just look at stats, yeah, they look pretty even, but I think Clemson has done better against better competition is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the actual teams. Now I put this on Twitter, and let's see if I can make this big. There you go. So I put this on Twitter. And basically, this is the Pro Football Focus. Now, I know once I say this, everybody's going to say, but Morgan, PFF is trash. And I get it. I do. But it is a place where we can look at their ratings and see if we can find any matchups that are favorable or not favorable for Clemson versus Syracuse. Now, I don't know what all goes into their grading system. I know they do it game by game and snap by snap. I know sometimes it's automated and they have some people that go through for quality control. So I'm not saying that this is perfect and an exact science. That would be dumb to say. But I am saying that is something that we can look at just to kind of have some fun here. So you've got on the left-hand side Clemson's offense and defense. On the right-hand side, Syracuse's offense and defense. When you look at the total score, Syracuse has a little bit higher of an offensive score than Clemson. It looks like their top guys are Garrett Schrader, who has done amazing so far, big turnaround from last year. And then Oronde Gadsden, who is really a wide receiver, kind of playing in a slot / tight end role, and is just killing people right now. And then you have, as you mentioned, Houston, Sean Tucker to round out the top three. For Clemson offense, you have DJU, the number one guy on the offense, and then Will Shipley and Davis Allen. That is actually kind of interesting. You have quarterback, running back, tight end, quarterback, running back, tight end for both teams. And they both have done a lot better than last year. So, well, I say outside of Sean Tucker because he had a monster year last year. But when I say both of them, I mean the quarterback, man. I mean, DJU and Garrett Schrader have really kind of stepped it up this year. But it is kind of interesting. What you think about that?
Well, I'm looking at this, and I can't help but think about a few things when it comes to their overall team, and especially on Clemson's defense and offensive line. There's a few people I see in red here, and I know this isn't numbers made up by you, Morgan. This is just kind of what you pulled from Pro Football Focus, but it looks to me like these numbers aren't factoring in a few things. I think these are just purely statistical. They don't have the narrative behind what's going on. Like, for instance, Andrew Makuba. Look, 56.6. I get he's been out and he's had some things that he had to deal with early on in the season, but I just don't see that number. Yeah, injury. Like, he's come back and he's played really well, and he's probably one of the better tacklers in the secondary. Nate Wiggins had a horrendous game against Wake Forest, and I think that's still showing up on his score. I don't think that's fair. I think since that point, he's had great games against Boston College and Florida State. He had a huge pass batted down last week. I think he should be higher up. And then the offensive line. Look, I get they're still young youth on this front, but I also think that this team has greatly improved from the first 3 games of the season, especially when you look at the last 3 games being NC State, Boston College, and Florida State. Are they perfect? No. You probably give up a sack a game, but they're able to move the ball, and they're able to create push, and they're able to do their assignments. I feel like they're only getting better from there, and you don't really see that from these numbers. The other thing I'll talk about is Syracuse as a whole. It doesn't look like they're factoring in, for all these green numbers, kind of who they've played. Look, I'm not saying that you should be punished for playing Wagner or Virginia or other teams like that. UConn. Sometimes, you're going to have some teams like that in your schedule. Sometimes your conference has a couple teams like that. But I feel like some of these numbers are a little inflated for how much they struggled with Virginia and how much they struggled with Purdue. And then on top of that, of kind of not really knowing where they are officially, because they were dealing with a team like NC State, who had arguably their best player on the team out for the game. So I don't think it has the full storyline, but we're going to find out on Saturday.
One thing that I see from a matchup perspective, obviously Oronde Gadsden, the second, is a guy you got to watch out for. It seems like the left tackle and right tackle have done better this year. So Sean Tucker to the outside. So those are the two things. If I'm Clemson's defense, I'm thinking Sean Tucker to the outside and Oronde Gadsden the second, making big plays down the field. Now, the good thing is, like you mentioned, I have confidence that Andrew Makuba is not that guy that he wants to go against. If Syracuse looks at this and they say, well, we need to pick on Andrew Makuba and Nate Wiggins, I think that would be a problem, a big problem for them, because those are two guys, as you mentioned, that are doing a lot better than their grade is so far this year. Also, to the outside, you're running into Xavier Thomas, KJ Henry and Miles Murphy, XT, who's not even listed on this as a starter. So and you're talking about the teeth of the Clemson defense, right? So you're not really going to have much success, in my opinion, when you're dealing with a 4-3 defense with the defensive line that Clemson has. So as far as that goes, we see here a total defensive score. Obviously, I think Clemson's defense is going to be able to really put Syracuse in check. If they can do it, the only thing that I worry about is, can they do it for the entire 4 quarters? We've already heard that the guys are not there all the way mentally. They're checking out, they're kind of going through the motions, and they're letting teams come back like Florida State. Miles Murphy has mentioned that they need to, reset and kind of focus more. So for me, I'm just putting a challenge out there for the defense. You can do it. You're that good. I think with a home crowd at homecoming, let's go ahead and show what you can do, play that entire 4 quarters. And I think it's going to be a complete domination on that side. Now, on the defensive side, you look at, it looks like their top players really are in kind of the middle of the field there. Your linebackers, McDonald, Jones, and Wax. And then you have your cornerbacks, Williams and Chestnut, who I've heard Chestnut has been dealing with some stinger issues and some lingering effects there. So you got your outside cornerbacks and your linebackers. Defensive line there looks like one of the weaker parts of the Syracuse defense. I think that could bode well for Clemson's run game again. You talked to me, I think, yesterday about how Will Shipley was kind of prioritized towards the end of the game. I think they're still steadily building him up to his full potential. He still hasn't maximized what he can do. And maybe based on this, maybe this defensive front, this 3-3-5, is something Will Shipley can take advantage of. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I look at this and I think that there are some things that you're going to extrapolate from last week that you can use. I'm always going to bang the drum to utilize both the tight ends, Allen and Brinkstool. It's always hard to defend a good tight end and, much less 2 great tight ends. They're going to be able to get some matchups on the outside. But I think some of the things that you see what they eventually want to do is set up Shipley to get him the ball, even Maffa as well, getting them on the outside, throwing the balls to the running back on the outside and let them do their thing, because it's hard. They're 2 of probably the most different running backs that Clemson fans are used to seeing in the last, 20 some odd years. Where you got speed and shiftiness and whatnot, like Spiller or ETN or Andre Ellington or whatever. These are 2 guys that, they can be shifty and they can move, but they just run hard and they're athletic and they're hard to bring down, and they're going to be a hammer every single play. I don't want to compare him to Wayne Gallman because I think they're more athletic. No slight to Wayne Gallman. He's a legend for Clemson, but I think they run with the same purpose, is they want to hurt you and they want you to have the hardest time bringing them down. So when you have 2 5-star backs, 5-star caliber type backs, being able to do that is going to wear a team down. And so it wouldn't surprise me if you get in a situation where you're up 2-3 scores later in the game, late 3rd, early 4th, seeing a type of march like that where they're utilizing Shipley or Maffa more than what they may have done at the beginning of the game, just to weaken and break through on that defense.
I think the Clemson offense kind of does that, lull you to sleep at the beginning. Like, hey, we're going to do some option reads. We're going to do some runs up the A gap. They may only get 1 or 2 yards here and there. Oh, by the way, we just hit you for a 25-yard 3rd down play you weren't even looking for. So I think Clemson's done really well this year with kind of like baiting team defenses into that. And then, as you mentioned, kind of just wearing them down as the game goes on. Clemson, to me, is a big-time second-half team, and they're able to have success. I always like defending the tight end as well, but I always get flagged for grabbing.
Not gonna.
Anyways,
not gonna touch that one.
All right, so going back to the spread here, we've got a 13.5-point spread. Is that fair? Do you take Clemson in this case? I'm gonna probably take Clemson in this case. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is the type of game where Syracuse is walking into a hornet's nest. I'm not going to say Clemson's going to just run out there and blow them out all the field. I tend to be a little bit more conservative in my picks for a game. But this is the type of game where I think Clemson will score early. I think they'll be able to control that middle eight. You might see a couple scores there, and then I think they do eventually get that punch it in moment at the end of the game to really put it away. Syracuse will score a couple times. They have a talented enough offense to at least score at least twice, I think, in Death Valley. So that's why I think the final score is going to be Clemson 30, Syracuse 14.
30-14. Okay, so I'm looking at oddshark.com as a place I like to go to. It's got Clemson 36-20. Clemson should win, cover the spread, and will go over. The game will total over the over right now, which is 49.5. But the spread consensus right now for the public is 61% to Syracuse. So Clemson against the spread 4-3 right now. Syracuse right now 5-1 against the spread. So there's some other factors in there that may weigh into my decision for the Roars Pick'em contest. But right now, I definitely feel like Clemson will win. I'm initially leaning towards take Clemson minus the points, but now I'm kind of thinking maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But again, thank you so much, Houston, for being a part of the show. We hope to continue to get you more videos out there. And the best way to show us that you love us is to hit the like button, but also put in the comments. Let us know what you think about this matchup against Syracuse. And let us know what you think about the show, any other tips, suggestions, comments, concerns, emotional outbursts, whatever. We love it. And we want to try to provide you with more Clemson content every week. This is now, Houston, the third video this week. It's crazy. So we're excited for that. And don't forget, before you go, if you haven't already, you can get notified by hitting the notification bell and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you at the top of the hill.